Hi, I'm Dr. Farinelli, and I am a professor in the Educational Leadership Department, and I'm here with our leader. This is Dr. Jim Ferrell. He is both the administrator over our school administration program, and actually he is over the Educational Leadership Department, which houses three programs.
Three programs, yes.
Those programs are?
Higher ed leadership, school administration, and teaching.
And which has a new title. Is
yes,
that right?
Eventually.
Okay,
we'll have a new title.
Eventually, it's been okayed at our level.
Yes.
It's got to go through all the channels. Okay, so I shouldn't let the cat out of the bag. I get a lot of questions, especially this semester, since this is the fall of 2015, and we may use this video for a few more semesters until all the people on the old standards in the school administration program have graduated. We still have confusion. People who are on the new standards, they'll hear somebody, one of the scholars in our program talk about, oh, I've got to get my A documents done. I've got to get my artifact cover sheets done. And I get calls every semester, people go, oh, what are these?
As do I.
Yeah, what are these artifact cover sheets? What are these A documents? And I go, don't worry, you're on the new standards. Don't even listen to those terms. So would you explain, as well as we can for this short video, what a person who isn't sure what we mean by new standards and old standards, and what the cutoff line is for who is on the old standards, who's on the new standards, and those certification people who have an option. Could we cover those three ideas? It's all yours.
All right.
The floor is yours.
So, really the timeline, the cutoff point is August of 14.
2014,
so last
August.
fall.
So if they were admitted August 2014 or later,
they're on the new standards.
Those are new standards.
New standards. There's no option. So we do have a few of those who were before August of 2014 who will refer to using the A and B documents and so forth, so you hear that. But for those of you who have started the program, and like we've talked about, we're well over half our students in the program now are on the new standards. So what do we mean by new standards? Let me give you the 2-minute overview of why we're talking about this and what we do with this portfolio and how it works. Our school administration program is just like every school administration program in the country. No matter what university or college it is, if they offer a certification for principals or superintendents, actually refer to it as building level administrators and district level administrators.
If they're accredited.
If they're accredited, they all use the same standards, and we call those the ELCC standards. And
ELCC.
ELCC. And there are 7 of those standards, the 7th standard being student teaching, or not student teaching, internship. So the first 6.
So practice principaling, actually.
Yes.
Or practice superintendent.
Yes.
Okay.
The first 6 are what we discussed during class. In the past, so the way that ELCC monitors all the universities and colleges in the country is they want to look at how the school interprets those standards and how they're ensuring that their candidates are mastering those standards before they go into practice.
And those are actually things that school administrators have told us, that when we have someone graduate from our school administration program, for that person to be ready to go out and be a principal, those are the things that school administrators have told us we need to prepare people to be ready to do.
Yeah, these standards are developed through school leaders, obviously, and so
why do we have old standards and new standards?
They revise them about every 7 to 10 years.
Okay.
The last standards before this were done in 2002. These new standards were revised in 2011, and so it actually went 9 years. And they just change them just a little bit. Obviously we know in education that everything has to change. You can either let change lead you, or you can be upfront and know that change is going to happen. So they're going to change. They're going to change again probably in another 5 or 6 years.
And they're very similar.
They're very similar.
But they do update and add a few new, very effective
For
ideas.
example, there's a digital piece in here about districts using technology to monitor student progress. That probably was not in the 2002 standards. But so the ELCC, when they accredit schools, and we're accredited, they look at things like how many of your students pass your state test. You have to have a minimum of 80% or you'll lose your accreditation. And so we met that 80%. They look at how you assess your students. And this is where they really want to see what we're doing with those standards, how we have interpreted those standards and are showing that our students are able to master those standards. And again, that's going to be different every institution because everybody's going to interpret them differently. And so we do that a couple of ways. We have the comprehensive exam, which everybody will do during internship too. So many people watching this video may not have heard that term yet, but they will. And then we have our portfolio. That's really the big way we do this.
I like to call it our bag of tricks.
Yeah.
The big bag of tricks.
And so with the new standards, what we do is we have in our 6 core classes, one assignment that's tied to one or more of the standards. And so what we've told the LCC is that we're going to monitor these specific assignments and we're going to keep track of how our students are doing on these assignments, and we'll examine this data every semester, and we can tweak our program based upon this. And so we'll know if our students are mastering these standards or not.
Now, so to clarify that point, those are for the candidates on the new standards.
Yes, these are just new standards.
They will have those projects embedded in certain courses.
Yeah.
Whereas on the old standards, if anybody's watching this from the old standards, we let them choose which assignments they thought fit each of the standards and elements. They simply had to put a rationale cover sheet on it.
Yes.
Explaining why they thought that assignment covered that particular standard and element, and then their instructor and their advisor and their cooperating administrator in the internship got to say whether they agreed that those did or not. But now we've simplified that for them. We have picked projects that we know will fit. So people on the new standards will do these projects for their portfolio, and they will have those ELCC's standards and elements covered.
Right.
Okay.
And you know, it's probably, the term portfolio is probably more appropriate in the old standards because they actually chose work to show that they've mastered these various standards and objectives.
Now it's more, like Harry Wong would say, now it's more their toolkit.
Yeah, it's not so much a portfolio now because we're telling them what to put in there.
Yeah.
And again, it's going to be one project from each of the core classes. So you and I may teach instructional leadership, and the core project in instructional leadership is going to be a plan of improvement because every administrator needs to know and understand the steps and why we do that and so forth. That may be the only thing that's similar in our approach to that class. But everybody who teaches instructional leadership is going to teach that project because it is required for the portfolio.
But as long as they use the rubric that we will grade by and look at those items that it says you need to do to get all 3s, and their instructor says, yes, you did all of these things and you made all 3s on it, that covers them.
That covers them. And so when they submit these portfolio projects to us during the semester, I always encourage them, go put it in the Blackboard portfolio right now too, so we can get it graded at the end of the semester.
Okay.
And the only other things that ELCC looks at, like I said, there's the state exam, the comprehensive exam that they'll do. They look at their portfolios. The other thing that they will look at that they'll be required to put in their portfolio are things such as their internship projects. ELCC wants to see what our candidates are doing in their internships.
Good.
And they also put in there the evaluation from their cooperating administrators. All of them will do that. And that data is a part of what ELCC also wants to look at.
Okay, so folks who started before August of 2014 are on the old standards. They don't have to worry about these new standards.
Right.
Unless they want to.
Unless they want to.
And the people who started on August 2014 or later are on the new standards. So they need to ask, if they get into a class where someone has an old syllabus and doesn't give them the option of doing these projects, they need to say, hey, I want to be able to do these projects in this class so I get credit in the class and on my portfolio.
Yeah, and they can go to the Blackboard site and under for principals, under principal submissions on the school admin Blackboard site, it will list the class and it lists the project in each class.
And they're responsible to have to go look at that and make sure that they're getting those projects done
Yes.
in those classes. The last thing then, someone who's certification only, they have the option of doing, if they started before 2014, those people also have the option of doing the old standards or the new standards if they want to do these projects.
Yes.
And basically, most of those already did a project that was similar in those classes anyway.
And for those who are on the old standards and say, hey, I think I want to go to the new standards, the projects are pretty similar to what we were doing in class. And so what I would advise them to do is to look at the rubric and see if there's anything that they might need to tweak. And what we can do then is when we go in and grade them, and I'm probably going to, by the end of this semester, I'll have everything updated in there. And so I will tell them, hey, you need to go back and add this piece to your paper, okay? So it's not a bad deal if they want to put something in there. We'll just tell them what to add to fix it. Because now we're much more consistent on these projects in our classes, but before the new handbook, you know, we didn't have to be as consistent because they could choose what they wanted. But so if they're on the old standards and they want to submit to the portfolio using the new standards, they can do that. Submit those documents, whatever that project was, and then just know that we might ask them to tweak it a little bit to meet the new requirements of the standards.
So if they're taking a class taught by an adjunct, and the adjunct, I'm sure you're telling the adjuncts about these projects that need to be covered in these classes, but for some reason the adjunct doesn't mention that to them, it would be good for them to raise their hand and say, well, I'm looking at my portfolio and I'm supposed to get this project done. I'm on the new standards.
Yes.
And to help kind of remind the adjunct, and then that'll key the adjunct that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Okay, good idea. Great. Thank you.